Okay, hello. We're going to continue with the sculpture of Levi, and I just want to show you how I put some additions here. I found that the profile was still too thin, so I started to put in more of the knee, put in more of these muscles here, and then more of the glutes as well to kind of build up the thickness and the actual proportions of Levi. So, we went over the initial stages of planning down, planning and executing some of these specific muscles, bones, and tendons, right? And and now I'm just going to keep going so that you guys can get a sense of how I move about the entire figure, okay? So I just gave you that little sample part, but now it's time to really get the whole thing working. So I want to show you too this this drawing here. This drawing exercise, the 1-to-1 scale drawing, where you draw really precise plane changes. You see those little notches right there in blue? Those are demarcate various plane changes in the outline of the model. And so what I've done is I've drawn on top of the photo of the model so that you can see how, let's say, like highlights and shadows on the photo are translating into lines and kind of note-taking that you can put on the sculpture, right? Because this time, once I start blocking in all of the points in space, I want you to start actually mapping out all the various shapes, the location of all the skeletal subcutaneous reference points, okay? Here, 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 the patella, the medial surface of the tibia here, the anterior surface of the foot, okay, the knuckles of the fingers, the zygomatic process here, which demarcates the width of the face, the frontal eminences, which demarcate a plane change in the forehead when you look at the forehead on profile. So, you can see various muscles that have been labeled, outlined and labeled. You see the lines of the sartorius muscle here coming from the pelvic points, the anterior superior iliac spines, okay, of the pelvis. So you can see how the majority of what you can see on the model is marked. So this is not a true anatomical study in that we're drawing every single muscle possible. What we're doing is that by looking at, and you can see in the photo of Levi here, you can see that there are various shadows on his photo that are indicating, let's say, like the ribs and everything. And I've drawn the lines there for that. Okay, so here and then here, right? So all those indications are marked out on this drawing. So the drawing is like a way to work two-dimensionally so that you can kind of plan things out before you start working on the sculpture. Okay, so this is a really helpful step for people who are new to sculpture, maybe more familiar with two-dimensional work, and you want to make that translation from 2D to 3D. So this kind of an exercise right here, where you're planning everything out first with your photos, and you can also actually touch your own, like let's say front of the thigh where the rectus femoris muscle is, figure out where the highest points, the outermost points of that form are. You can use a different colored marker to draw where that is. Here you can, in blue marker, I've drawn where the plane change occurs, the outermost point of this part of the hand, right? You can start to plan everything. So you're planning things in a separate fashion so that when you get to the sculpture, you have a better idea and clear plan of how you're going to go about things. So so I'm going to start working on this sculpture, and I tried to work so that you guys could see everything with the sculpture right in front of you, but then I found that I was getting proportional issues. So I'm going to actually start working on this. And then as I work, I'm going to just turn the sculpture for you to see. Okay, so right now I've just added a little bit of clay to widen the hips, okay? Because right now his legs are just way too thin. So I'm trying to make this area right around here of the great trochanter of the femur just a touch wider so that I can get a little bit more form here. So, so once again, because I've plotted in the forms of the leg already on this leg right here, I know exactly where to place my clay. Okay. All right. So it's really just a matter, you see here, it's just a matter of getting more of these forms in here so that he doesn't look like some weird skeleton man. Okay. Levi is slim, but he's not so slim that it's like a bone man, okay? He's not that thin. So there we go. And I realize that I say so a lot. So as I repeat myself, I apologize. Yes, I forgot to put in the soleus muscle during the last demo. So here you can see the soleus muscle is illustrated down here. You can see the soleus muscle is on the sides of this gastrocnemius. So the gastrocnemius is the double muscle here. It has two lobes, and it's just above, the two lobes are just above the soleus muscle, which is on the side. It's this thin, really thin one right here. So it's like a really thin wedge, okay, and a really thin wedge on the other side. So I'm going to put that on here too. Okay. There we go. So I'm going to add some more soleus here, which is going to give more volume here. So the soleus muscle, right, is protruding out more on this, along this line right here. Okay, right here. And then it curves in. So if you give your lower calf a feel, right, you're going to feel in this area that it's almost like a curved, it's like a soft cone. So it's kind of almost like triangular, okay? So it's not absolutely geometric hard in its shape, although it looks like a sharp triangle. It's got a softness to it. So this is the apex of that form, and then it comes forward more to the sides. I don't know if you can see. Okay. So we're gonna get that, more of that. Okay. All right, so I've got that. Now I'm gonna start working with the rest of the body. Okay. So here we've got this outline of the thigh. So I'm gonna work with outlines right now. Okay. Because in general, I've got the placement of the joint bones, right? So the two elbows. And I can also put down where the wrist is generically, just to get an idea of where things are. But it's going to take a little bit for me to figure out if these really work in space. So I want to keep working with these legs, finish them out so that I can get a sense of the proportions. And then after that, I'm going to really finish off the rest of this. So what I'm seeing now is that this gesture is a touch too much, so I'm going to do this. See that? So he was tilting just a little bit too much. All right. Okay, here we go. All right. So I'm gonna add some more of this vastus medius muscle here, which is on the side. Excuse me, vastus media, vastus lateralis. Okay, it's going to be on the outside of the knee area right here. Okay, so it's going to widen out that leg, that thigh. And then I'm going to move this here, move it up. So I had his knee moving a little bit more to the diagonal. I want to move it in this way. Realized when I looked at it again that it was a little bit off. So as you are putting down information, do not freak out if something is off. Sculpture is about holding information in your mind, and it's almost like you're holding it in suspension. You are not just making a quick judgment. You're actually withholding judgment. You are observing, you're making multiple observations, but you are not making any commitments. It takes a while before you make a commitment to a form. So in general, if you have the attitude that you are putting down information so that you can just kind of get a general idea for how things are placed, and then you're moving it around to be sure it's really working, then that is more, that's a real skill that you get with sculpture. So I know that for some people that can be very stressful, but I actually think it's a very important skill, because when you have the patience and the ability to hold pieces of information, right, in your mind, what happens is that it actually bleeds out into your everyday life, where you realize that you don't have to just react to anything anymore. You can actually be much more observant of the things that go on in your life, inside yourself, outside yourself, and take the time to really understand what's going on. Okay, so it's really, this is not about a reactive mind. It's at least in the beginning. Okay, so I'm just turning this because I find that the interior shape was a little bit too wide. It's not about developing a reactive mind so much as the ability to observe over a period of time and to really understand something deeply. This is about deep study. It's not about at least this kind of study, or I'm not saying that all sculpture, you're supposed to study everything. No, I'm just talking about this one particular type of academic study, okay, where you're learning how things are made. You're taking that time and you're making sure you really understand, okay? So that's what this is about. You can see I put some clay here, right? See, I've just put it like kind of in a line like that. I haven't even put this down yet. So I'm going to put down some of that anterior surface, excuse me, the medial surface of the tibia. So I'm going to put some of that down. It's this surface right here. Okay. And let me show you also on the gray sculpture. I think that'll help too. So it's this surface right here. You'll find it's like a hard ridge right along the front part of your shin. Okay, so I'm gonna just start to form that. And then I'm seeing from the photos as well that this part of the knee can come out more. And then this gastrocnemius. Okay, so we've got the medial surface here, the gastrocnemius here. I'm just going to fill this area in. Okay, now I noticed that some of you will just like put big old blobs of clay and then just keep moving on. Try to give it a little bit of form. If you know in general what the form is like, either wipe with your tool like this. Okay, some people like wiping and smearing because it's kind of more of a linear way of creating planes. You see this? You can create planes in the clay. Some people like more round. I actually personally prefer round because I feel that when I roll my tool to create round to hard edge surfaces, as I roll, I have much more control over the form. So it's really up to you, but I personally prefer rolling. Okay. So if you're gonna do like a quick study, I'd say just go with smearing and just like pulling the clay along. Okay, so I'm gonna keep going with this. So please, as I'm sculpting, take a look at this sculpture. It'll show you a lot. Also got this sculpture too, which can help you understand a little bit. Actually, I'll put it here. So you can see some of these lines that I've taped onto the body of this sculpture. You can see how, you know, as you're applying material, you see how this is much more rough and unfinished. You can see how I've built up the volumes there, right? So it's a lot like this stage right now. So as it gets closer to more and more finish, you're gonna go here. So it's gonna be from this step to this step, then that, where you start to really model the surface of the form, okay? So, all right, so I'm gonna keep going. Now remember these, it doesn't really matter which video you're watching. What matters is the technique that's being conveyed. I know some of you have been thinking that if it's not your model, then you don't need to watch it. But actually with every single video, I'm adding more and more information to it. Okay. So everything right now is kind of all surface. Like I'm just looking from the front for now. So I'm tentatively putting this down as the shape of the pectoralis muscle, okay? Pectoralis being this right here. So I'm working with that, but I'm just generically putting stuff. So right now I'm just gonna keep filling areas that will help me to see this more as a complete sculpture, okay? Because I know that when it's like super like skinny, right, and you're just beginning, it gets to be skinny to the point where like I don't even know what to add anymore. So this is a time where you just start putting on some of this flesh. Once again, you're not going to go totally nuts, but you're really going to fill things in more so it really looks much more anatomical, much more like a real body. Here I'm starting to add this area of the skeleton, excuse me, the rib cage. So you can draw this shape right here. All right. And that will be where the ribs are, the shadow of the ribs that you see on the photo of our model. Okay. And then here, so this pectoralis muscle tucks in underneath the deltoid. So we're gonna have it, place it like this. Okay. Knowing that our deltoid is going to be placed in front of that. So there's a high point around here at this deltoid area. So right around here. Okay, right there. So we're going to keep that and just start to form this a little bit. So I'm going to put some of this clavicle on. So the clavicles rest. Okay, the clavicles, all right, they rest on top of the rib cage. So they're extending out farther forward than the rib cage. And then there's the pit of the neck right here, okay, which is formed by the two sternocleidomastoidus muscles. So sternocleido means sternum, okay, so this is the sternum area right here. Okay, this sternum. Okay, this is the sternum, and it's the central section of the rib cage. Okay, so the pectoralis muscles are connecting, right? They're excuse me, they're connecting like this, right, on top of, attaching right next to the sternocleidomastoidus. So so this central area is exposed, and then the muscle is attaching onto the sides of it. Okay, on top of the sides of it. You understand? So the boundaries of the sternum are here, and then the muscle attaches over that. Okay, but not quite covering the entire sternum. So the sternocleidomastoidus has two connections. One is at the sternum, one is at the base of the clavicles, and one is at the mastoid process. Okay, so it's literally this muscle right here. You see there's one end there, and then it ends up right here. Oops. Ends up right here. So the mastoid process is the hard bump behind your earlobe. So if you feel behind your earlobe, you'll feel that. Okay. So this sternocleidomastoidus in portraiture of any kind, whether it be sculpture, drawing, or painting, is actually quite a key muscle. This is the one that creates this kind of dramatic V shape, which frames the face. It's like it frames, it just extends up like that. And a lot of times you can see it. So even here, you can see that sternocleidomastoidus. All right, so in extreme shadow, you will see that sternocleidomastoidus protruding. If there's a lot of tension in that person, okay, they have a very tense neck. Or like, let's say they'll have like an very elegant looking kind of composition of somebody, and you'll see this very gentle, beautiful sternocleidomastoidus, which is gently sloping up, and then you'll see the face, you know, kind of floating magically above it. Okay, so so this sternocleidomastoidus, quite simply, is the shape of a V. All right, that's all you really need to know, is that it's the shape of a V, and because it's the shape of a V, it counterbalances the shape, the A shape of the trapezius muscle here. So this is the V, that's the A. Okay, so now I'm going to complete this clavicle up here. And remember that the clavicle is like a Cupid's bow from above. Okay, so the front part, because the clavicles are resting on top of the rib cage, are protruding out farther forward. Okay, you can see, whoops. You see how this is protruding farther forward, right? So that, whoa, think this almost fell over. So that that's very important. There are people who will forget that this protrudes forward and they'll just put it straight across. And what ends up happening is that the figure will look very stiff. So this will protrude forward here because of the forward protrusion of the rib cage, okay? And then this will swing backwards here, and it actually gets flattened here. Okay, so you see how I'm drawing? This is what you need to be doing as you're placing your clay down. So you're going to be drawing where things are, and then you got to take a moment to stand back and double check that everything is working in the larger context of the proportions of the body. So I'm going to just keep going. I think I'm going to show you this one handout though. So we've got a handout here that shows you the shape of the clavicles from the front. So that's this is the sternum of the rib cage, clavicles moving out, moving in, and then at this point the deltoid begins. And then at this point the deltoid begins again. So it's like it's closer to the outside here and farther outside, farther into the center of the back, closer to the spine part of the body. So I'm going to start placing this here just a little bit. Okay. Now I want to put some of this pectoralis muscle in. So we're going to stick that in there too. All right. So once again, I don't know the dimensions of this pectoralis when I look at it from just the front. So I have to look at it from the top and below as well. That is actually where it's at. So something that I want to be sure you get is the anatomy lecture. Okay, so I have another anatomy lecture that I just did. You should see the link. And the anatomy lecture is going to go over the shapes of muscles. Okay, the muscles that you are it's like you have to feel it to understand it. So the muscles, I'm actually wiping this in the direction of the pectoralis muscle fibers. Okay, so they're actually flowing in this direction. They're like this. Okay, then there's a deltoid. So here at the pectoralis, right, it just looks like it's just going across like a U, but actually the pectoral muscles have gravity to them because they're resting, right? So there's a thicker muscle belly here, but then it's dropping. So you want to be sure you get that sense of it falling, okay? Because if you don't, it looks like some weird plastic action figure. Okay, so I'm just putting some there. All right, you see that? So there's like more of a drop. And then I'm going to put some here. So this is dropping. And then there's more muscle fiber here, right? It's being compressed because this arm is swinging in. So the muscles are shorter and they're being compressed. Here, the pectoralis muscles are being stretched out in this direction. So think of it as being pulled diagonally back. So I'll just sculpt this real quick. So they gather here underneath the armpit. All right, if you were to stick your hand right here, you'd feel it. It'd feel like this cord, this bundle of cords or rope like right underneath your armpit area. And if you squeeze your arm down, you'll really feel it. That's your pectoralis inserting underneath your humerus bone, the upper arm bone. So So here it's kind of like this cord, this gathering of all these muscles. And then it gets a little bit thinner, just a touch thinner here. Because of this pit, this cavity here, there's a little bit of a cavity there. Not a lot, but it's still there. And you can also see on Levi that there's a plane change here. Okay, so it's like this. Okay, and then this deltoid muscle is up a little more, creates a little bit more volume. Okay. Okay, so right now it's still a bit flat. Okay, because I want to be sure that I get the sensation of volume, but I'm not overbuilding anything. Okay, so and then just remember that there's this pulling of the muscle here. So it's going to be a little bit more full here and a little bit more pulled out that way. So I'm going to just double check the shape of this from the profile. Okay, so you're working from the front, you also got to work from the sides. I'm seeing that this actually needs to come further forward. All right, so you get it. It's like you're putting down information. You're kind of working your way up to things and just slowly but surely getting it. So you see how much more this had to come out. So now I'm going to adjust for that. Now that I know how far that comes out, I'm going to do this. Okay, and then also you have to see it from above. So you're also going to be looking from above here too. So when I look at this, I have to be at the perspective. So my eye level has to be level with the photo. And then when I look at the sculpture, I have to be looking from above so that it creates the exact same perspective. Okay, that's the only way to really know. So I see that right around here, just the area below the nipple is the outermost point that I see from that perspective. We'll pull that out more. Okay, now the thing that you guys may not be aware of is that rib cages are all different. As you can see, our various models, figure models, are all different. The rib cage can be the same, similar, have similar components, but some people can have a rib cage that is sunken in. Okay, here we're having the rib cage coming out more up here on top. So there's actually quite a lot of variety, even in rib cage shape. All right, so I'm going to redraw this. You see how everything just kind of just got all messy, right? In this area, like it just became all of a sudden indiscernible. That's it's very important that you get your drawing of your shapes in very clearly, reestablished every single time you work. Okay, right now what you're doing is you're blocking in all the muscles and all the shapes. So it's not a time to just let everything disappear. You really need to make sure that your shapes are all very obviously delineated with these border lines. Okay. All right, and there's actually some there's actually, when you look at this area right here, when we get into more detail, you'll see that there are actually kind of like these bumps here where you can see the bundles of pectoralis muscle being formed. So you can see like here to here to here. You'll be able to see a little bit of that too eventually. But right now we're just going for basic stuff. Okay, so we're just kind of getting this sternum area, making sure it's protruding enough. Now, now you know that the profile of this, when I saw it from the side, is not necessarily, the high point is not necessarily right in the center of the body. Most likely it's on the sides, okay, the sides of the center line. So in general, you must have noticed that muscles have been generally arranged symmetrically on either side of the body. So the body is bisected in half, and you're going to get mirror images on either side. So you got to be aware of that. Okay, right now I'm just putting in some of these shapes that I see, just building this up. See a little bit this shape here. And then forming this rib area. Okay. So these ribs have a kind of geometry to them where the outermost point is around at this area right here. So the bottom of the ribs is around here, but then the outermost plane, okay, is going to be around there. There are also the serratus muscles that cover the ribs, and a lot of times people will mistake them for ribs. They are not. They are these muscles right here, the ones that are going kind of diagonally. They look like they have the shape of feathers on the end of them. So we haven't gotten to that yet, but that's what a lot of people will mistake for ribs. Okay, so now I'm going to put the high point of this side of the abdominals. Now remember I had said that you need to understand the forms that muscles take, right? So on this side of the body, okay, because he's contracting these side muscles here, you're going to find contraction of the muscles here on the abdominal area. And then here you're going to have extension. So what does that mean? It means that this area is going to look thinner on the profile, and this side is going to look thicker because the muscles are pulling down and they're getting thicker there. You can see. See right there. All right, I'm gonna keep working a bit more. I want to get some of this belly area in. I just want to do a little faster now. Okay, so here we've got this movement. So I can see there's this highlight along the belly area. So I want to put that down. I know that here there's an actual shape. Okay, and we're going to draw where that is. Okay, drawing will help you get all your proportions working. Okay, if you don't draw, the tendency is to look at the body as if it's this ginormous, like morass, okay, of gray, of pixelated gray values. All right. So to contrast with that, right, you're going to be drawing a lot on this sculpture so that you really get all of your get all your forms in. Okay, you're drawing in all your boundaries. So once again, trying to get these ribs. So I drew the ribs, double checked them, and then I'm going to put the clay down. Right, so it's all about double checking. Remember I said this is not about it's not about making rash decisions. It's about being able to put down a whole bunch of information, moving it around, keeping it loose, being sure that you are not putting down a solid judgment yet. You're taking the time to understand and make sure everything is fitting in place. And I hate to say it, but much of life is like this, you know. It's not simple. It's actually a lot of complex things, and it takes time, sometimes many years, to understand even one thing and how it fits in the context of the larger whole. That's why people in their when they're like 100 years old, they're saying, I barely learned anything, you know? And it's true. It's there's only so much time to learn, and it's like there's a lot, really a lot to learn. Okay, so I'm gonna put some of this bicep muscle in. So the bicep, you can see even here. You can see here how it inserts underneath the armpit as well. So we're gonna put that in there. So it's thicker at top and then it gets thinner at the bottom, right? But when it's hanging, right, because gravity is pushing down on the muscle is actually hanging. It's not contracting right now. So there's a hanging look to this muscle. You see that? It's like it has a little belly right there. So you want to be sure you get that. On Levi, his bicep is a little bit contracted, but it's not at full contraction. Here we've got the tricep area, which is placed just behind that. You know what, I'm gonna, all right, put there, okay. Then we're gonna get the forearm muscles. You see how this muscle right here goes in a diagonal around this arm area. So you're gonna start up here and then you're gonna fold the clay to the front. Right, so it's spiraling. This is one of those spiral muscles. So it spirals and then it inserts on the side of the wrist. Okay, so it's starts up here, spirals in, and then inserts on the side right here. Okay, remember that the wrist is kind of like this box shape. So we're gonna make sure that it's like a box shape there. Okay, so we've got more of a muscle mass here, so we're gonna get more here. And we're going to add a little bit more of a belly here. Now, when it comes to the tip of the elbow, we have to figure out exactly where that is. It's going to take a little bit to find that. So the way to find that is to look from above or below. So like I said, we're just doing from the front right now. So we're going to place this stuff here, and then when we turn, that's when we're going to see where everything is placed. Okay, so now I'm going to put the front plane of the hand. Now the hand, right, there are, if you think of it as two, like here you can have this hand curve, right? Or you can straighten it. And then here, you've got this uppermost point, uppermost area, this surface right here along the bone, right? You'll feel the bone right underneath the skin. Now, if you look at it at this direction, it creates a kind of barrel here, and then this is kind of like the facet of a triangle. And that facet can move like all the way down here, create a very distinct plane change here, or you can move it up. Okay, so it's very simple. If you think of it all as like at having the root around here, you can say like, oh, it's like, it's almost like a flap, you know? Okay, right? So when I put down this hand, I see that this facet of this hand right here is going to be the part that sticks out the most. And then this part is going to be like that little barrel shape where it's actually being pulled back more. All right, as the pinky descends. Now, I have not made an armature for this hand. I probably should, but I kind of don't feel like it. But I think I'll work the hand armature more on that side. Okay, so what you can do is you can start to put clay down like this, and that'll help you just get a sense for where things are. But just know that you're going to be moving these fingers around quite a bit. And a thing that really helps is to draw. So I'm going to look at this, take a look at where everything is. So I'm seeing that actually this has to go way down. Let's see. Oh, this is way short. Okay. Let me just move everything around here. This elbow goes way down. And then this hand has to be placed much lower. Much, much lower. It's got to be down here. And then the finger is going to be, the index finger is going to be underneath the pelvic point. So we're going to place it down there. Okay, so you saw how easy it was to move that, right? Yeah, it really is that easy. So don't be scared, just do it. And then here, I'm going to recreate that plane of the hand, move it down. And then I'm going to extend the wrist so that this is longer. So the wrist is going to be, if you do a generic kind of rectangular bar right here, that'll help you create kind of a more generic but also easier to follow kind of figure out where things are actually oriented. Okay, so you see that it's kind of like a rectangular bar. So now I'm going to continue with my fingers. I think I'm just going to put the middle finger next to the index for now, and then wait. I want to get the rest of everything else in. Okay, but this is giving me an idea of where the hand exists. Okay. So once again, you're thinking about how this is curved. Okay, this is a curved surface right here. And I'll probably just stick some metal in there for the rest of the fingers. Okay. So I'm seeing that the negative space here is not quite working right. So I'm going to make sure that it really does. Okay, so I got to pull everything down. I'm seeing this needs to come in quite a bit more. All right, so pulling it all down. All right, so a lot of people, they get intimidated by hands. Do not be. Just think that you've got to block everything in for starters. You are not doing things so they're beautiful and perfect. What you're doing is you're still trying to work these in so that, this is the thumb right now, so that you can map everything out three-dimensionally first. All right. It takes time to build up that map in your mind. So so that's why you're just settling for something temporary for right now. So right now I'm going to continue to make this mass of the rectus femoris. Okay, so if you look at it from above, it's facing a little bit more diagonally. It's a little bit this way, right? That way. So I'm going to make sure that that's, especially because of the rotation, that there's going to be the mass here, and then you're going to have the sartorius in this area. Okay, so let me get this in here. So here in this area, you're going to find there's kind of like a cavity here. So if you're not too embarrassed, try to feel this area right here. You'll feel that the muscles here drop and the fullness is around here. Because the muscles, the tendons that insert, they're much, the tendons of the muscles, right, will attach up here, and it'll be thinner at the top, and then the belly of the muscle will get wider down in this area. So that's why you're getting this like thinner up here, more of a concavity, and then a muscle belly area down there. And it's multiple muscles there. So I'm just kind of wiping this. Now here there's the vastus medialis. We're going to get that in here too. So since this leg is, this knee has a little bit of tension, but not a ton, right? This vastus is going to be kind of like hanging and relaxed. Now on Levi, it's not as massive as this guy right here. You see this big bulge right here. First of all, this is supposed to be a super muscly kind of guy. You have to pay attention to the body type of your model. All right, not to mention, don't sculpt yourself, because that's what a lot of people do, is they sculpt themselves. Okay, you'll have like thinner people, making a full-bodied person look way too skinny. You have a full-bodied sculptor making a skinny person look too round. It's just unbelievably common. We subconsciously are trying to reproduce what we already know, which is also the reason why, this is why observation, constant questioning, you know, within reason, right, is very good for keeping your mind active so that you do not become just a big creature of habit. When you become a creature of habit, it's like the end of creativity. So you want to keep that critical eye alive and constantly working, constantly being challenged. Okay, so there's kind of like a concavity here because it's in here. You don't want to make it like a big old cavern, but I just want to highlight that. So this is when I'm going to start to actually make more of the plane of the patella a little bit more uniform. Before I just put like a gaba clay. Now it's kind of more, has a little bit more form to it. You can see. Okay. All right. So I'm going to continue with this, finish it off, and then we're going to move to the sides. So in this area, the ribs are, you know, moving out to a certain degree, right? You can see their forms externally, but around this area underneath the pectoralis, there's actually kind of a depression. So I'm going to get some of that. Okay. All right, so I'm going to get this bicep in here. I'm going to generically stick the tricep behind it. We can shape that later. Let's see here. It's like that. I'm going to stick the elbow area behind here. Right, so this is like the head of the ulna. So you see it's like really wonky, right? Well, we're not worried about that for now. All right, and now we're going to get this right here to curve around. It's the brachioradialis paired with the extensor carpi medialis longus. Okay, they insert the belly, major bellies here, and then they insert into the side of the wrist. Excuse me, not here. It's that side of the wrist, so it spirals again. Okay. So I'm going to double check. Now I'm going to give form to this. I'm going to look at Levi. All right. And once again, this is when you want to actually feel your own muscles. So when you do this biceps brachii, you want to feel what that's like. Remember that the belly of the muscle, you see how it drops and then it gets a little thicker on this side. See, it drops here and then gets a little bit thicker there. You want to be sure you get that hanging of the muscle. And then spiraling around. Okay, and then the hand will rotate this. Thumb is going this way. Okay, I'm gonna cut this. Actually, I'm gonna use scissors. You can use scissors or pliers because this is so close to the tip. I just kind of want to do this. There. So with the thin 1/16 inch wire, it's okay to cut. If it's an old pair of scissors, it could ruin your scissors. So watch out for that. But if you don't care, then you just go ahead. All right, so we've got this here. So since the finger touches the leg, I'm actually going to insert it into the leg. And that will make this hand armature a lot more stable. I'm gonna put it in a little bit more like that. Okay, and then I'm not sure about the other side. Yeah, actually this middle finger actually gets in there too. So we're gonna get that in there, stick it in there. Okay, and then here we're gonna fold this. So when you make the hand, be sure you understand that the arrangement of the knuckles is a semicircle. It's like an arch. So it's a little bit more steep at the bottom, then it comes across like that. And then the knuckle of the thumb goes down even steeper, okay? So when you place this here, notice that my bends for the knuckle is here, here, and then up here. Okay. So, all right, so this finger also touches the leg as well. So I'm gonna bend it here, and then I'm gonna let it really get in there. Okay, so remember that it's kind of like a barrel shape, right? Right now his hand is gonna be more like a barrel shape. So we're gonna make sure that this is the outermost wire, that one's going in, this one goes in even more, and then this one gets bent higher up here. Okay, right up there. Okay, here, 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 okay, right up there, and then I'm gonna cut it. Okay. See that? All right, so we're gonna get this here. This thumb is moving in more, but for now, we're gonna coat it with some clay. Okay. Get it in there. So you saw I coated it with clay and then I pushed it in. So we're gonna do it like this. Like that. Then this way. Okay, so in the photo, you can see actually this much of the other finger, the ring finger. So to move that out. Okay, so when it comes to the hand, just kind of like smear it onto the armature for the beginning, just to make sure that the clay is sticking. Okay, so you're gonna put the metal, the clay onto the front and back of the metal. That way, you're really making sure that the clay is attaching to it because it's so small and so delicate. You don't want to have clay just like cliff hanging onto like a tiny portion of the armature. You really want it totally covering the metal. All right. And then once you have it totally covering the metal, then you can start cutting into the clay and forming more specific fingers and such. Okay, so you see it's quite sloppy right now. It looks like this big old mitt. So it's okay. It's just the sloppy phase of things. Okay, so I put in a little bit more information here. You can see where I started to place some of the elbow. And I actually moved the hand. It was way back here. I moved it this way, farther forward. Okay, so that the that this viewpoint is so that hand is in the right spot. Okay, so now I'm going to work more from the side view. There's still a few things that are definitely need to have more mass put in. Okay, so I'm going to be looking at the back view right here, right around this area of the back pelvic point. And then also at the same time, I'm going to be looking here as well. Okay, so so I'm going to be placing these muscles here. Okay. So there's a compression that occurs here, right? So be sure you've got your drawing here, that this line is really describing where that crease is. And then you're going to be placing the clay into that section. So there's a crunching that occurs here. Now I actually drew this this spine right here, okay? And you see how there's like practically nothing in this space? That's because I need to fill that, okay? So there's an area right here, I'll place it right here, where the flesh, you see, yeah, where the flesh is getting compressed down by the thumb, okay? Getting pressed by the thumb. And then this right here, if we turn it some more, this right here needs to get filled. Okay, so when you can kind of work from the side, checking from the back, right, you can get all these viewpoints to work together. So we're going to add some more here. So I'm finding that the form here, where I put the rib cage area, is it's like unclear to me. So I'm going to start drawing where I see all these shapes. So about here. And then there's this drawing down of the skin where the thumb is pulling down on the pelvic point. So the pelvic points are here. So you got to be sure that you're clear about where that is. And then there's this roll of flesh here. It's over there. So with this right here. All right. So you see how I'm kind of adjusting all these forms? I'm seeing that when I drew this here in comparison to where the pelvic bone is, that this actually needs to move up a little bit more. I'm going to move it up a little bit. Okay. And then move this up a little bit too. All right. Okay, so I'm going to keep putting more of this in here. Okay, and I'm just widening this pelvis a little bit. Especially where the flesh here, right underneath the thumb, gets pushed down. Okay, so it's getting it's getting squished in and then pulled down. Right, and it's just underneath the iliac crest. So he's putting his thumb right here. So there's the iliac crest right there. He's putting his thumb right underneath there. Okay. So got this. This. I wish we had some theme music. Oops, lost a finger. It's okay. Put it right back there. So let's check this out. All right. So I'm going to place more flesh here on this side, okay? So if you were to feel from back to front, right, on this side, you're going to find that it's thicker here and thinner on this side. So you want to be sure you get that relationship right. And then we're going to get some of this compression here too. So this area is compressed, and I'm also seeing that this is also needing to move upwards. It's not in proportion still, so we're going to go up here. Which makes sense too, because it's this is a little bit lower than that. So we got to make sure that it's all making the right shapes.
don't know if that works. Actually, I think it's fine. It just needs to come a touch higher, but not quite as low. So we'll move this up here. And there's this little fold right here. So I'm going to draw where that fold goes. And then you can apply the clay and put it in its place. So you see how orderly this is when you have everything drawn out. You can even draw where you see the shadows of the certain spines of the vertebrae. So there's all that you can work on too. It all depends on how much you want to work into this. Now, when it comes to how this torso looks from above, right? That is something you really have to look at with the photos. That's why we have so many photos that are from the above and below viewpoints. It's so that you can really observe that. So you don't want to be just thinking like this on the side all the time. You really want to be working from above as well. So there are these muscles right here, okay, right here along the side of the spine, and we want to be sure of that. So they actually kind of get compressed. So there's like this movement of this like area of muscle, kind of like this, okay, kind of like that. And we're just going to make sure that it's there. I'm actually thinking that I need to move this in a little bit more. So you may have to scoop things out if this is like too pillow-like. So I want to actually move that in. So it's a little confusing because the clay is darker. So I'm going to put a little bit of a little layer of this kind of clay too, right on there. Okay. So now I'm going to be looking at this belly right here, the muscles that are dropping here, okay, in this back thigh. These muscles, right? You see the arrangement of 2 rows of muscles, right, on either side. So it's going to have this kind of more thicker area around here, and then it's going to get a little thicker on the inside as well. So it's not like a round tube. It's like thicker here along this area, and then it's going to get a little bit rounder here as well. So I'm going to add some here. I'm actually going to shape it so it's cutting in more like this. I'm going to shape all this. So this is actually the way. The way to resolve that is actually to get like a hammer and to hammer it in. But I'm not going to work on that right now. I'll work on it later. All right. So I'm gonna make sure this bell is here. So I want to repeat, and I'll repeat it many times, okay, so you guys remember that the brightest highlights on the body are most likely subcutaneous. The darkest shadows on the body most likely are also subcutaneous. So when you have areas like the pelvic points where there's these dimples and then this crease right here of the elbow, okay? Then at the point of this elbow, you're gonna get the brightest tip, okay? It's like, it means that skin is very tightly covering bone, okay, for the tip of the elbow. So, so you're gonna be looking for your skeletal references first, right? Because they're like coordinate points in space. Then afterwards, you're going to be plotting out all of these muscle shapes, okay? You're going to be trying to get the general feel of the placement of those muscles. And then after that, you can start thinking about the quality of the shape of those muscles, that they're hanging off of bone, especially areas like this. It's actually hanging down, okay? And then the ones that are contracting, like this is, he's lifting this arm with this deltoid. He's actually, it's like kind of like pinching to hold that up, right? So you're gonna get more contraction there. Contraction means that the muscle is going to get thicker, shorter and thicker. All right, so that's contraction. Then you're going to get stretch on this side and compression there. Okay, does that make sense? So it's a variety of stuff that needs to happen. And don't you worry, this is all just to get you started. Okay, it's not to make you feel like, holy crap, I'm supposed to know all this all at the same time, and there's so much of it. Really, I'm trying to talk about all of this and get you familiar with it now so that later on you can grow into all of this information. It's really just a lot. It's a lot of stuff that needs to correlate with each other. And by no means do I think that you're supposed to get it immediately. But I definitely want to be sure that you know you're aware of it all, that all these various aspects of the body need to be understood little by little, okay? Some people, their minds understand structure a lot better than, let's say, like the emotional feel of a figure, right? So, so the people who really like structure, they're gonna love finding where the bones are in space, because it gives them certain parameters and boundaries where things can exist. The people who like more kind of like an emotional feel, they're gonna go most likely more with the kind of sensation that you get when a figure is more relaxed, the kind of feelings that come from certain body poses. You know, certain body poses make you feel more powerful, or let's say more sad, or, you know, that's the kind of thing that maybe more emotionally oriented people will be interested in. But regardless of what you do and what you're interested in, placing all of this stuff is going to help give you a framework from which to work with. So just kind of filling this out a bit. So there's actually some compression here because of the bathing suit. Now, so this shape right here, you see how it's kind of like comes in at an angle and then it comes out again. So that's what we have here as well. Okay. So go this. Okay, so you see how this is moving out from the gluteus area. Okay. That's kind of emulating the shape of the gluteus muscle that is then attaching to the fascia lata. So the fascia lata creates this kind of shadow ridge. Oh, you can't really see it on that. It's right here. So there's actually like a light dimple of shadow along this part of the leg. Okay. So I'm gonna make sure to put that in. So you see how incredibly flat this all is? So I'm going to make sure that it really gets filled out more. I actually don't have the reference photo for this side, so I'm gonna get to this soon. Okay, you can see the shape of the gastrocnemius here. Then it's moving up behind the knee. So this area behind the knee is what creates the profile, right, of the back of the knee. But check it out. It's not, so it's actually kind of like, it's almost like this, it seems like a really thick kind of like cord, right? That's like pulling the joint together, right? So it's gonna come out a little bit here. And then the gastrocnemius is going to keep moving up like that. So you see here where the form just looks like it's flowing all into each other, right? But when you see it on the model, it's going to look like there's a central cord here, and then on either side there's the gastrocnemius. So it's kind of a strange phenomenon, but that's how the form actually looks on the model. Okay, we're just sculpting the lobes of the gastrocnemius here. So as I hope you can remember, there's the soleus on the side. So I'm going to make sure to put that down there. So here's the soleus. Okay. And then the soleus is going to go into the heel. And then now we're going to make this part. Remember that the back part of the soleus, so you're going to have the sides of the muscle of the soleus on the either side right here of the gastrocnemius. But you also want to be sure that So these are like the outer lobes, okay? And then here, there's this part that's, it's kind of almost like a soft, rounded, like a flattened triangle, okay? So the tip, the very tip of the triangle's here, and these are the two sides of it, right? Looking from above. So you want to be sure to get that kind of relationship going on. And then the soleus on the inner side of the leg is actually farther in on that end. So we'll be sure to get that as well. Okay. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to continue with these glutes because the color is so different. I want to just complete this. So here we're going to complete the glutes. Use a larger tool for this. So for larger, rounder surfaces, you can use a larger tool. But when it comes to really tight and small forms, you want to use smaller tools. And it seems like it makes sense, but if you don't realize that if you're not familiar with sculpture, you don't realize that how much a tool can really affect the way you work. And it really can. Like sometimes if you're using the wrong tool, you can spend a lot of time making something and it'll just never look right. And it's really because your tool is not making the right kind of form. There we go. All right. So let's address this area right here. So we've got the lats. We've got, let me see, what is it that we're looking at? So there's this hanging area right here. Okay, this is the compression of flesh, all right, between the rib cage and the arm, okay? So we want to put some flesh in here, flesh it out a little bit. Now this arm right here, I want to be sure that the triceps, right, are shaped like this. And it's like this, and then it hangs. Okay, it hangs like that. All right, so you got to be sure that you get that hanging part because this is relaxed, right? So we're gonna get that. Ooh, you know what? I haven't covered these glutes, so I'm gonna cover these glutes. So you see this form that it's at a diagonal, okay? And then it's a little thicker up here, and then it gets thinner down here. So I'm gonna make it thicker up here. So thicker meaning it's gonna be kind of more round shaped. And then when you get down to the muscle here, it's gonna get a little pointier at this point. So it's gonna be rounder here and then pointier here. And that's also with muscle contraction. So I know it's kind of weird for some people, but if you can feel your glutes, you can figure out this shape. The sacrifices you need to make in the search for truth. I know, there takes a lot. Okay. You can see, start to really form that now. So add this. And then now I'm going to create some of this shape here. Okay, remember here in this area, oops, here in this area, right? There's this movement. So it's going to get a little bit thicker here in the front. So it's thinner and more squinched here and then thicker out up here in the front. All right, and you see how this thing is all filling out. It's pretty amazing just how much you can do. So I'm gonna get, so I've started to, so you want to draw it in, draw the muscles in. Okay, draw that shape in. So you're really sure that you're getting all your proportions right. Now what I'm seeing is that this looks a little bit narrow. So I'm going to pull this out a touch. Oh, hang on, let me finish this out. There we go. So now we're going to draw in where this exists. Okay, I just need to take a look. I'm actually not at the right spot. Okay. All right, so now I'm here. Let's see if you can get a little bit more of this. Yep. There we go. Okay, so let's move this. You can see it a little better. It's a little dark. This here. Nope, there's a shadow. Okay, back here. There. Okay. So so I'm now looking at the photo and the photo of the model and the sculpture. Okay. So I'm seeing that this needs to lean over some more. And I'm also seeing that you see the line quality of this, right? It's actually a little bit too, it's actually a little too vertical. This right here, this side of his rib cage, right? So I'm going to actually move it out more. Okay, and that's why this drawing stuff is so important, because now I know that this side, as I thought, actually does need to move out a little bit wider. Okay, I'm going to keep sculpting, and I'm going to start drawing a lot more. So I'm using kind of a thick tool to draw. If you have a thinner tool, go ahead and use it. It really depends on how well you can see your drawing. So if you can see your drawing very well, then that should not be a problem. if you're going to use a thinner tool. But if you're going to use a thicker one like this is really good for being able to stand back really far away. And then in that sense, it's got a much more graphic, strong graphic look to it. Here. And then squinch in here. Just double checking some of these lines that I put down. And then up here, I'm seeing that this is where we're getting that tip of the scapula. Okay, so, all right, and then I'm gonna draw in here. And then the C7 is all the way up there. So you can see how like when your information is well organized, how easy it is to place forms now, right? So this is really about organization. So right here, you can see that. All right, that's the C7. So now I'm seeing that I placed this quite high, and I'm looking at it again. It's looking like this needs to move up a touch. And then it's going to make a little bit more sense. So right now I'm reforming and I'm giving a little bit more of an organic look to this trapezius right here. Yeah. Okay. And then from there, I'm going to find that this part, okay, so yeah, and then from there, I'm going to find that this actually needs to come down a little bit, this point of the scapula. So I'm looking side to side to see if the drawing of the scapula are correlating, okay? So I'm just double checking that. You can actually even draw a line straight across if you need to be able to figure out if that relationship is correct. And I keep seeing that it's got to be like around here, and then you want to see that. So if you were to draw a triangle, right, with the C7 and then the 2 points of the scapula, you want to be able to draw that in at just the right angles. All right, and then I see it moves out here a touch. Okay, and that's why like all the drawing exercises are so important. If you're going to sculpt, you have to be exceptional at drawing. It just goes without saying that this 3D thing really is like, it's like drawing in 3 dimensions, and you really gotta nab it. Okay, so I'm gonna draw this scapula here. I'm not sure if I like where this is. Just gonna double check the shapes. Okay, see that? So from this scapula to that scapula. All right. Okay, I think I'm seeing that something that's throwing me off is my center line of the back of the rib cage. I'm gonna double check it. So I'm seeing here, and then here, there's shadows. And then there's an angle change here. Very important. You see that angle change moved out this way? Okay. It's actually up a little higher than I had. So now I'm going to make it go down again. So at this point and that point, there are angle changes, okay, of the spine. So it's very important in a sculpture of this size. Even if you get off by like 1/8 of an inch, it's like 1/8 of an inch on this is like an inch on a person. Okay, so it's actually quite a lot. So when you're looking at this, you gotta really try to pinpoint stuff. Oops. This here, this here. Okay. And then I'm going to draw where I see there's this angle right here. Okay. So I'm going to place this anatomy handout right here so that I can see the back anatomy. All right, see that? Okay, so there's this like form that occurs because of the scapula underneath the latissimus muscle. So you can see the latissimus muscle like around here on Levi, okay? It's like this shadow right here. So latissimus goes like this. It's like a big V, all right? It's like that. So the latissimus is thin and it's stretching around here. You can put your hand underneath your armpit right around this area and then pull down and back, and you'll feel the latissimus pulling down, okay, because it's attached underneath the arm. So you want to get this form of the latissimus being pulled over this form of the scapula. So the latissimus is like this. It's wrapping underneath the scapula. I mean, excuse me, right over the scapula. And so it creates this bump. This bump, this shadow depression you see there is a result of that shape of the scapula ending underneath the latissimus. So I'm gonna put some form here. And then the kind of like bumps that you see underneath here. So this is kind of like a rounded kind of bumpy area. Okay, right here. It's the form of the the serratus anterior, which is underneath this latissimus. Okay, so this is the shape. It's the one that looks like it has wings. I'll show you. So you see these kind of like wing shapes right here. They look like feathers. It looks like a wing like that. That's underneath this latissimus, this thin latissimus, and it's connecting underneath right there with the scapula. Okay, so so you got to be sure to get that shape. All right. And then I'm going to start filling in some of these areas here that I see. So got things like maybe the teres major up here. This is the one that shaped like this. Okay, right here, this one right here. That's teres major. You're going to get the infraspinata right here, which is moving in this direction. Okay, so like I said, you don't need to know all this, all right? You just need to, I mean, you don't need to like memorize all this stuff. This is all just for your convenience so that you know what's going on, okay? So what happens is that these insert underneath, okay, to this humerus bone right here of the upper arm. And then the deltoid is inserting on the spine of the scapula up here, which we already made earlier. All right. So this area right here, there's going to be kind of like it's going to be bumpy. It's because the muscle fibers here, you can see right here. Oops. Because the muscle fibers here, right? They're actually shortening in this area. So you're going to feel that they're bumpier there. So go ahead and do this position with your arm and you're going to feel it. Right. And then remember that the deltoid is actually attached not that much, but like around here, this much over. Okay. And then right around where the spine of the scapula is, the bunching actually gets larger up here. So it's going to be thicker up here and then thinner. It's going to be thick up here, then it's going to flatten a little bit, and then it's going to bump again, and then it's going to hang in real tight into that arm bone. This is what it looks like. And the insertion of the deltoid is going to be farther forward. Not all the way in the front of the arm, but it's going to be farther forward than it is behind. Okay, so it's going to be like that. Okay. So now, move this here. Now we're going to put some of this tricep down. So the triceps are underneath the deltoid. And you can see the shape of it, right? So it's got this belly, and then this long belly right here. So we're gonna make sure we get all that. So here it's so what it is that if you feel that back part of your arm, right? It's gonna feel like, how do you describe it? It's like the highest point is going to be in this area here. So we're going to put a piece of clay down here so that it can actually emulate that, right? And then, so this is like where the belly is biggest and greatest, right? And then there's a tendon here. So it actually gets tighter around here. And then it goes, and then it inserts into the elbow area. Okay. See that? So that's where we're going. Okay. All right. So I got a little bit of that. Let's make this a little bit bulkier. It's our profile a little bit more. We'll rotate the tip of the elbow a little bit more there. Okay, so this area right here is still quite unknown. So I'd started to talk to you about the trapezius. So the trapezius is up here. there's a tendinous area right here. Okay, I want to actually cancel out some of these lines because it's really hard to see right now. I don't want to drive you guys nuts. Okay, so there you've got the C7. And then here, there's like a tendinous sheet here. Okay, so it's actually thinner. This is the thinnest area, and it's just attaching to the spinal area. Okay, the spines of the vertebrae. So here you're going to get forms that are tighter up against the bone. Okay, and it's either going to be a shadow depression. So up here it's going to be a shadow, like a little bit more of a shadow depression. Here it's going to be a bump again. And then depending on the position of the model, this is either going to stick out or it's going to be the deepest area. So right now, it's actually, let me look. So it's sticking out a little bit, and then creating depression around here, all right, going inwards, and then the muscle gets thicker around here. So I'm going to add some more clay there. All right. It's going to be a touch thicker here. So if you feel this area right here, you'll feel how it's skinny up here, and then it gets thicker here. All right, thicker here. Good. All right, so I'm going to keep adding some more flesh here. All right. It's going to protrude out more. And then here in this area, the rib cage is actually going to come back towards us a little bit more. So the depth of this rib cage, if you look at it, it's too straight here. The rib cage actually comes out more. Okay, so the spines of the scapula. Hang on, I'm sorry that there's that shadow, so we can fix that. So this, oh my God, that's even worse. Okay. So this right here, the spines of these vertebrae need to come out more. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna pull this out a touch more. Okay, and now the forms of the scapula. Okay, so you see how that makes it come out a little bit more. So we're gonna make the scapula bunch up the skin around this spine area, all right? And then this part is gonna stick out more than the spine area. Okay, so in this case, the spine area is going to be more in shadow. Okay, remember I said it's subcutaneous? So either it's going to be the darkest shadows, or it's going to be the greatest highlights. And in this case, it's going to be the darker shadow. Okay, now when it comes to this scapula area, if you think of it as like there's a diamond up here where this is sticking out more, and then it's thinner there, right? If you imagine a diamond from above, right? So like this. So if you see it from above like that, and then you look at it from the side, you know that this tip of the thumb side is going to be closer to you. So you just have to remember that. Keep those dimensions. that's how you're going to get the shape of this right. So go ahead and feel the top part of your shoulder area right now, and you'll feel how your deltoid meets this top part of the scapula, and then it comes out, and then the scapula so this is comes outwards like that. Then here the scapula pops out in that direction. Okay, so you really have to take the pose for this. So if you have a different model, you know, not Levi, please take the same pose as your model, and then you can feel all these things. Okay. So this area right here actually gets compressed a bit. Here we're going to get this to move in a bit more. All right, so I'm going to redraw this so that it doesn't get lost. Okay. You see that? All right, so you can see there's still things that are quite out of proportion. All right, so we got to just keep moving on. Okay, so so you see how it's like this is almost feels like it's flying up, right? Too high. So I want to fix that. Okay, why is it like that? Okay. All right, so this is what I'm seeing. Feels like it's flying up because this is too thin. So this rib cage is actually a touch too thin for this body. So I'm going to widen it a little bit right here. And then, let's see. And then I'm also going to make this a little bit straighter. So I have the kind of like the bumps that the rib cage creates, but it's almost too bumpy. We need to unify this a bit because there's the latissimus muscle back here. Okay. This one back here, which will round out that bumpiness. Okay. So okay, the part that's most behind right now is the head. And you can see that it's quite small. So I think that is also what is making this whole figure feel a little bit disjointed. So I want to work on that too. Stick a little bit more here too. I believe that this deltoid actually comes down a touch more. I'll recheck. All right, so let's get some of this head. It's just getting ridiculously behind. So this should help with all of the sculptures. Okay, all the various models. All right, let's get this head. So I'm gonna work on it from behind. Check him out from behind. Still seeing this needs to come out. Trying to get the width of these shoulders because the head, the dimensions of the head are reliant upon that. So right now I'm just putting the width of the back of the skull. I'm not putting a ginormous ball of clay on here. All right, once again, we want to be sure that we get the actual person and not like some weird, crazy ball. We don't want like a toy head. Back here. Move this about, move this out. This. All right, now I'm going to put the little bit of the jawline here that I see. Get it down here. So once again, it's just a little bit of clay. All right, we're just trying to find the position of it right now. Okay, and now you can also pinpoint where the zygomatic process is. Okay, let's see. So his head is kind of like a teardrop shape. So it's very important that we get that. It's like a thin, it's like it's smaller at the top in shape. So everybody keeps saying that's like a big old ball for the back of the head, and that's how it is for certain skeletons, but it's not so for everybody. So just be sure that you get that part straight. Like, you don't want to make this ginormous ball. All right, so that's around, so this is around where the zygomatic process is, right around here. So you're going to mark that. You want to do a line that's horizontal and then vertical. Okay, when you do that, you can have it really is, it's like you're creating the X and Y axes on which that point exists. You really want to get that right away. You might not have it in the right spot, but it doesn't really matter. What really matters is that you start seeing so that you can compare where things exist. I'm just using a metal tool. So I'm going to cut where I see the eye sockets existing. Oops. Okay, so that clay fell off, so we're just going to get this back on here. So once again, I'm kind of just creating a profile right here. Right, and it's going to be like the point of the nose right here. So that's going to be just like my beginning. And then I'm going to get a little piece of clay. So I see that this is sticking out a bit. I'm going to cut that in. And then I'm going to place a piece of clay, which will represent the front part of his face. Okay. So I want to finish up this scapula area. I jump around a bit, I know. So let's finish this up. There's certain forms that I see here. I've got this form here. So these, okay, so this is the thing. When you are working with a reference model, you want to work with anatomy. You also want to work with actual, right? So you're trying to balance all these various types of information together. So some of you may want to go more for actual, some of you may want to go more into anatomical type forms, okay, where you over exaggerate forms, but that's really up to you. But you need to know that you have a choice. So these forms right here, I'm just closing this up. And then I'm making this area so that it's protruding more. It's protruding more because this area is on top of the rib cage. So we want to make sure that that's really working. Here. And then this area right here. Okay. So you can see this kind of trapezius shape. And then I'm going to fill this deltoid area. So once again, feel that deltoid. It's like a little cap on top of the scapula and the clavicle. After a while, you'll be like, deltoid, deltoid, deltoid. Fine by me, as long as you learn it. Go. Right, and then we'll get this deltoid. Come here. Okay. All right. So now the scapula right here is so here the scapula, so if you think about the scapula as like a flat plane, here it's angled this way. Here it's more straight. I mean, it's still kind of curving a little bit, but it's not sticking out. The point of it is not sticking out towards you as much. So you're just thinking about that you're placing these muscles on top of that scapula, which is sticking out a little bit, but it's a little bit more like that. And we're just putting in the teres major muscle right now. All right. Here we're going to get a little bit of the forms here. Right here. So these are just like the muscles. And it's actually like the skin that's attaching to the various, what do you call it? Spine of the vertebra. Okay, so this. All right, so I want to get a little bit more. Let's see, let's get a little bit more of this forearm. So there's this form here. We're going to get it, swing it in like this. Okay. And seeing that this plane of the pinky needs to move here. I mean, the part of the hand that moves into the pinky needs to move a little bit out like that. And the other thing that is making this feel disjuncted is that this part needs to get a little straighter. Straighten that out a bit. All right, so I'm going to start to kind of fill this a little bit more. So you're thinking that you're not making a big poof. You're thinking about how these muscles are hanging. Okay, and depending on whether if the person has fat over this area or not, that's going to also contribute to the sense of form. So in general, the mass is, it's like thicker here and then swings out this way. Swings here and then it gets tighter. So this outermost point actually needs to move more this way. Okay. So get here. Okay, and then this area, like I said, turns into the fascia lata. So I'm going to fill this up a little bit more. And then this is going to be more like a depression. It's going to create more of a shadow shape here. So what I'm going to try to do is do a simple 3D, digital 3D scanning of this, and then hopefully you'll be able to work with this. So this is kind of like flat like a pancake here, you see that? So we got to work on that part soon too. Let's see. So I'm seeing it from this angle right here, and I can see that this needs to come out more. This is where you really need to look from above to really get these forms. So from above, I can see that this part right here is sticking out more. So that's why I'm putting more clay there. So let's get a little bit more of this thickness right here. It's looking a little thin. So we've blocked everything from the back. Now we're going to look at it from the side. and be sure that it's all really correlating. So right now this is like, it's like a triangle here, and it shouldn't be. It should be much more vertical here. So now I'm going to put some more material. Double checking. You may just want to simply do this, where you do a long piece here. Something like that. And you can always just change the placement of it all. Okay. Okay, and I'm seeing too that the pectoralis here is looking too high. All right, so like this right here, it's looking too high compared to Levi's. So I'm going to do an alteration. I'm gonna make this lower. Okay. I'm seeing this part is still, let me double check, you know, I'm looking at it from an angle too. So here it's more this way. Hard to tell because he's got that facial, that body here. So this might actually be okay where it's at. So I'm just gonna leave that there. Remember how I said that it's about, the sculpture is about observation over a long period of time. So we're just gonna leave that there. That piece of clay is gonna help me remember exactly what is happening there. Okay, so here. So this sternocleidomastoidus actually moves out at the opposite angle, this way. I had it like that. It's actually this way, which will push his side of his head out this way. So let's get that. Let me get the side of his head right here. So wow, it's a totally different spot. Okay, so the side of his head was here. And then now I'm going to start actually, I'm going to take that clay, I'm going to use it to start building the forehead area. And then we're going to get the jaw. Okay, so we're going to get the jaw here. Okay, so you see how everything has changed? I'm going to get the jaw here. Remembering that the face is oriented this way. Okay. And now I'm going to look at it from the front a little bit and just check out where his eye socket is supposed to be. So of course you can always draw. You draw like that. And then I'm gonna, you gotta recheck it, of course. I'm just kind of throwing it on right now. And then you start placing that eye socket. So I'm making it go straight across right now. And then I'm gonna just put in the cheekbone area too. And then I'm going to stick some clay in here so it's not like a big gaping hole. All right. So we've got front of the face. All right, the cheekbone right here. You're going to want to put a mark for where the zygomatic process is. I'm just going to tentatively put it here for now. Okay, and you want to get a toothpick in there for sure. And then when you've got this down, right, you've got a really basic block in for the face. Okay, you can even draw where the mouth goes. All right, so I don't want to get too much into the face right now. And I'm going to double check the placement of everything. I think this is enough for now. So, so here you can see that we've been really building up the forms. Okay, we've got this built out more. And then from here, you can continue to re-sculpt this area and get it so that this is all moving out in with the correct profile. Okay, but you see how easily, because everything is drawn, you can put one part at a time and make sure it's all corresponding. All right, thank you for today. And actually, you know what, I'm going to disconnect this so that you can see everything from every angle. Okay, so here's the sculpture for the boat. And then I'll move it like this so you can see these forms. Right. Let's see. Sorry, I had to move the other sculpture. Okay, so I hope this helps. Thanks a lot.